Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Unscripted and Unchoreographed. I'm your host, Sarah, the dancer.
And Neve, the actor.
And today we're here with our guest,
Tadhg, a dancer, I think.
It's great having you here tonight, and it's great to meet you, and we're going to get to know your story. So if you could just start for us, how did you get started in the arts?
I just grew up in a theatre environment. Both of my parents worked in my local theatre. My mum was a costume designer. My dad writes scripts, did a bit of acting. So I kind of just grew up in it. So I think it was quite natural that I would end up in the youth theatre. Yeah, it was kind of just, it's always been part of my life, I suppose.
Did you start in ballet or theatre?
No, I would have started in theatre probably when I was about 7 or 8, I want to say. I didn't get into dance until I was 10 or 11, I think it was. So there's quite a gap there.
You were in the Irish National Youth Ballet, were
I was
you?
indeed for 4 years, I think. Feels like a lifetime ago.
Did you have one that you preferred, or were you doing theatre and then suddenly it was like, oh, let's do ballet, or did they kind of just happen?
I think the theatre side of it kind of came in and out of my life. I don't think I was ever really consistently doing that because just other interests came about. So it was kind of always in the background and always being around theatre. It was never as consistent as dance when I was like 15 or 16, right? Fully went into dance. I suppose getting to that age, it was kind of like, okay, if I am going to go into full time, it's kind of need to do it now. So 16, that kind of year before, where I had that kind of first conversation with my teacher about it, and we went, okay, yeah, let's do this.
When you first decided, I want to take this as a career, did you ever have any pushback from parents or friends that maybe this is something that they weren't completely on board with straight away?
Surprisingly not, that I'm aware of. I'm sure my parents probably had some kind of reservations, but they were pretty supportive. All my friends were supportive. I had a few teachers who were best pleased with, missing school and stuff, but that was the case for many years. But for the most part, I was thinking about it now, as you said, really, really lucky to have the support I had. Maybe too much support. Might have thought some things through better, but you know how it goes.
Did you leave Ireland for your training?
Yeah, so I left when I was 17 and I moved to Glasgow. So not too far. Yeah, the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. I'm not even sure of its full title, to be honest. I was there for 3 years.
And did you enjoy it?
I didn't. I think it's like any experience in life, there's ups and downs, but I think reflecting on it now, having been away from it a while, for the most part, it was mainly downs, unfortunately. I loved Glasgow to bits. I loved being able to dance every day. I didn't really get along with my year all that well, so that obviously plays a huge part. And then maybe I didn't always agree with the teachers. There was a lot of things that maybe I wasn't expecting, or I'd maybe romanticized different parts of it in my head. But for the most part, this comes across really bad. It wasn't that bad. I don't miss it. I'm not always reminiscing and going, oh my god, I wish I could go back to college. Because by the end, it was kind of like, oh, thank god, this is over. Let's move on.
Was part of it you felt you were going and you were a bit young, or that it wasn't the right course for you?
I think for sure, maybe it wasn't the right course for me. I'll be honest, I didn't get a lot of offers, so my choice was limited. And out of the offers I got, it was definitely the best at the time. The conversation did come up at one point going like, you don't have to do this now, like we could just wait a year and try again. Looking back, that probably would have been more sensible. For some reason I was really picky with where I auditioned. I don't know why, or so I probably would just be more open and tried out more auditions. So yeah, maybe not the best course, but definitely at the time it was the right choice.
Can I ask what other places you auditioned, or can you remember?
I auditioned for Elmhurst, Northern Ballet School. What was the one in Scotland that got closed down for very good reasons? Ballet West. I auditioned for there. I feel like there was one more, but I can't remember. Oh, Central. Just for Central.
So very much like ballet.
Very ballet heavy, which is certainly not the path I've gone down, but it was originally the path I wanted to go down. Going into it, the contemporary side of things was always something I think people had kind of wanted to push me into, but I was never really showed any interest. Like from a very young age, my mum pushed that side of things onto me because I think she just knew I'd really enjoy it, but I was a snobby ballet bunhead, I'm not afraid to admit it. And it was like, no, contemporary dance, you. Like it was always something I wanted to do, but my focus going into it was very much going to do ballet. I'm going to come out of this a ballet dancer.
What attracted you to ballet?
I don't really know, to be honest. Just like you always get the question as well, like why did you start dancing? I truly don't have an answer. My mum is still convinced it was because one time we did this trip to London, maybe when I was like 8 or 9, and we went to see the Royal Ballet. But that definitely wasn't it, because I remember seeing that and going, no, you're not going to see me in a pair of tights. That looks uncomfortable. So like I made that decision there, and then 4 years later, for whatever reason, like literally picked up a leaflet for a summer school. I think it was Ballet Ireland summer school, and was like, I want to do this. And my parents were like, okay, why? Sure, you do you. And then just stuck with it. I don't think there was ever a huge driving force of like, oh my God, I love this so much. This is what I want to do. It was kind of, this is something I can do. I've got the opportunity to go further with it. You know, I believe in this moment in time, it's something I'm somewhat good at, so I may as well see if I can. I don't really know. Don't make me sound very passionate, but
It sounds like that you had really supportive parents, the fact that like it could have been something as simple as you picked up a leaflet and was like, I want to try this.
yeah, that was completely it. Like, I'm very, very fortunate to have that in my life.
I know it's not always the case. I was lucky as well, but I do know when I started training, that was not always the case with everyone else.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I know quite a few people.
There was like the idea of doing it as a hobby, and when you're a child is one thing, but when you're
Yeah,
like, wait, you want to make money from it? How does that even work?
it doesn't.
And that brings us on to the next thing. So when you finished your training, what did you do next?
I graduated and very randomly somehow ended up going straight into this kind of week-long residency, like to work on a new piece that I was very fortunately gifted from the local theatre. So literally dove straight into that, which went pretty terribly. I think it was just too much to take on too soon with very little experience in the professional world. It was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, and I'm so grateful for it, but probably not the best timing. And I was working with other people, so I had one friend who was a couple of years below me in college, and then just a couple of other friends from back home that I used to dance with. I was kind of like, here, I've got this project. I've got a bit of money if you want it. Let's just go hang out for a week.
What was your next move?
I didn't have one, to be honest. Everything was very up in the air. You know, I graduated into COVID, so where do we go from here? Feeling very uncertain about a lot of things, both just career-wise, but also just dancing-wise. Came out of college a little broken, shall we say. So I wasn't really sure where I was going with things, and then things kind of just worked out. I don't know if you guys know Stephen Brennan. He's a teacher stuff back in Ireland, so I would have first started dancing with him, and he was doing a week of classes at Dance House. So I was like, right, I'll go down to Dublin for the week, get in the studio with him, just see what's happening. There, I purely just happened to run into some dancers who were about to start with Ballet Ireland, their Nutcracker run at the time, and they were like, here, would you not just come with us? And luckily it all worked out. So I was very fortunate to pretty much come straight out of college with a job, which a lot of my peers at the time were not so fortunate. So I was very lucky. Nutcracker was fantastic. You know, first job out of college, you're going to love it. I felt just extremely lucky to have any kind of job. So I think no matter what we did or what was happening, I was going to love it. I got really lucky to get a lead role in that production, which was very surreal at the time. Despite not really doing a lot of dancing in it, it was still core cast, which was wild. And looking back is completely wild. But it was a lot of fun. Being able to go on tour was just so much fun. I love touring so much. Hopping around Ireland. I got to go to loads of places in Ireland I'd never been to before, which was great. And just to be on stage and get paid for it was like, what is going on?
Did you have like a favorite location on that tour?
I think doing the Gacy in Dublin was a pretty special one. Like, it's just a beautiful venue. It's a great stage, great theatre. So that was just really fun being in the centre of Dublin. I think we went to Derry on that tour as well, which was obviously quite near me. So that was special because I performed on that stage a few times growing up, so to go back to professional was a lot of fun too. Felt like a real kind of full circle.
I saw you in that production. It was beautiful.
Thank you very much.
I was meant to go see it and it was cancelled because of COVID.
Yeah, it was the first year we did it. We made it pretty much right up until the end. It had been catching up with us for a while. We kept escaping it very narrowly, and then obviously someone went down and it was like, right, we just have to stop there.
Have you worked with Ballet Ireland since on any other productions?
Yeah, I worked with them kind of on and off then for 2 years. I think the next production I did with them was, you might know Roisin Whelan, Irish choreographer. Amazing, amazing person. They commissioned Roisin to do their first kind of full-length kids show, so got to create that with them. We did kind of intense 6-7 weeks creating that. Then we obviously did Nutcracker again, which was even more fun the second time around, surprisingly. And then I got to do their production of Bold Moves in 2023, I think it was, which was also a lot of fun. So I've done some pretty cool stuff with them that I feel very fortunate to have gotten to do.
When you are like working for, say, Nutcracker, how long is like your rehearsal period? Because in my head, I think it's much longer than it actually is.
The first Nutcracker I did, we had a month. So that was creating it, rehearsing it, getting on stage. It was very tight. But then, funnily enough, the second year round we have 6 weeks of rehearsals, which then was too long because the show was done. But I think that kind of worked out because we were doing the Glasshouse tour at the same time. So there was a couple of us hopping in and out of those rehearsals to, go across the country with that show. So I think it worked out for us having that bit of extra time. Usually you'll have about a month to 6 weeks, whatever the production is. It's not very long at all. For a production like Bold Moves, where you're doing a couple of shorter pieces, you're looking at 2 weeks for each of those pieces to learn it, cast it, put it on stage. Especially the Bold Move seasons are intense. Like, you kind of get into it going, I'm going to have no life for a month now, and we're just gonna make our way through it, and we're all gonna be okay.
And out of the Bold Moves and the Nutcracker and the Glasshouse, was there one production you preferred?
I think I hold them all quite close to my heart for different reasons. Like Nutcracker's Nutcracker, getting to do that as your first professional gig is always fun. Getting to tour, that was always fun. Like, just when you have the right group of people, it's just night after night so much fun. Glasshouse, was the first piece I'd ever been involved in, like, create it from scratch, and to like have a character created on you is really special. And as well, that group of people were just really, really special. We had so much fun. And then something like Bold Moves, it's a much more contemporary program, which is more what I wanted to do, and I got to genuinely dance some dream roles in that I didn't think I would possibly ever get to do, never mind, 2 years into my career, which is crazy and wild. At the Welsh Festival, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, because I hadn't.
No, I tried to say the festival name and went, no, actually, we're not going to do that.
I think it's Eisteddfod. It was wild, because that was in August, I think. And basically, up until that point, I had been on a break from dancing for almost a year. My friend got in touch with me. Are you available these days? Are you still wanting to dance? Would you have any interest in doing this? And I was like, sure, why not? Like, it's a week in Wales. What's not to love? I was going to be dancing with somebody I used to dance with in like the youth ballet and stuff, so I was like, it'll be lovely. And then, stupidly, neither of us actually did our research. So no one really knew what was going on. And we showed up on the first day, and the director picked us up in her car from the train station. She was like, so do you guys want to know what's going on? And it turns out that this is like the biggest cultural festival in Europe. And we were going to be doing like 2 sold-out nights in an arena of, I think it was 2,000 people. It was streamed live on the BBC. It's going to be on the telly again later this month. So it's this kind of crazy, like, what have we gotten ourselves into? And we have how many days of rehearsal? It got very intense very quickly. The only thing I knew was that we were doing a rock opera. I kind of just presumed it was going to be in like a theatre, not that big a show. Yeah, it was not what we were ready for at all, and especially not having danced properly in a year. I'm going, oh, what have I gotten myself into? Like, I fell in love with Wales and the Welsh. I don't stop talking about it. Everyone was just so lovely. Like, we had an amazing band playing live music. We were working with a kind of community dance group too, and they were all so lovely, and people who ran that were so lovely. Like, everyone was just so supportive and so welcoming. Everyone just wanted it to be the best show it could be. It was very much like, you guys do what you need to do to make this look good. Like, it was just so much fun. Yeah, would totally do it again. Totally do it again.
I know you wanted to, and if you've changed your mind, that is perfectly fine. You said you wanted to talk a little bit of imposter syndrome.
I can talk a lot about imposter syndrome.
I'm going to hand it straight over to you. I know I've had episodes where I've had imposter syndrome, and I think, Niamh, I'm sure you've had at least one episode of it.
I think it happens to us all.
And I don't think it's really talked about enough.
Not as much as it should be.
What is your experience of imposter syndrome, and how has that impacted you and your artistic journey?
Good place to start. I think maybe in the youth ballet I would go through small phases of being a bit like, what am I doing here? I think I was really lucky to be in a really supportive environment there. Like, everyone was just so lovely, teachers, directors included. So I think it was mainly when I went on to college, things get more serious, it gets more competitive. I think a big one that comes up a lot for particularly male dancers is the classic, like, oh, I'm just here because I'm a guy. You know, they need guys. I think what annoyed me in that a lot was people going, oh, no, it's not. But, you know, most of us know right well it is. I'm very aware that I would not have gotten the opportunities and would not continue to get the opportunities I get if I was a female dancer. I know I'm very lucky and in a very privileged position, but I can also admit I'm not the best dancer in the room most of the time. Like, I know I have good qualities and stuff, but I'm very aware if I was female, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I got. And I think, particularly in college, when you have people kind of going, oh, no, it's not because of that, you're kind of asking, like, okay, then why am I here? I feel like you could give me something else to focus on then. I'll be honest, there are peers in my ear quite literally telling me that, being like, oh, you're only here because you're a guy. And it's like, yeah, I know that, but you really need to point it out. Like, that's not really your thing. So I think that's kind of when it first started becoming a thing. You're kind of going, oh, well, then why am I here? And maybe kind of by the end of first year, I really put the work in that year and improved a lot. So by the end, I felt like, okay, I'm up to scratch here. Like, I know where I'm at. And then in second year, I sprained my ankle quite nastily about a month into the year, if even, and that pretty much put me almost fully out of things up until COVID. So I started feeling very left behind and kind of going, oh, like, how am I ever going to catch up with these guys? Like, I'm never going to be as good. I'm missing out on so much here. And then obviously COVID happened, and I'm going, ah, Jesus. Like, I've essentially missed out on a whole year of my training. And going into third year then, I was doing pretty okay up until our third term when we started the show. Just unfortunately, me and one of the people who was choreographing one of the pieces just didn't get along. They had they're very known for singling out people for no reason at all. They just take a disliking. And unfortunately it was me, and, you know, most days in rehearsals it was kind of just being battered into me that I could do nothing right for no reason at all. Like, I was just the chosen person. So every day going into that rehearsal was just like, what's it going to be today? Like, it felt like at any moment I could just be cut from the piece entirely for doing the smallest thing wrong. So then obviously you start getting in your head. A lot of people with imposter syndrome have this, but you have like 50% of your brain is maybe overconfident and too incredibly confident, going, no, I'm great. Like, it's all bullshit. Like, of course I'm meant to be here. And then you've got the other 50% that listens to that person and you go, oh no, maybe they're right. I'm just terrible. I can't do anything right. So then I came out of college kind of going, well, I'm a pretty terrible dancer. Yeah, I graduated, but where do I go from here? Like, obviously I'm not very good. And then, you know, there were certain jobs and stuff coming out of college that almost amplified that. At times it maybe felt like it was used against me, unfortunately, because it's something I've always been very open about. So then to sometimes be treated in the way that I was treated, it kind of felt like, you guys know that this is something I struggle with, and yet this is how you're going about things. Obviously, it's only going to get worse. So there was a point when we were creating that children's show, actually, And I think just being part of such a small group of really talented dancers, like, I couldn't get through morning class without basically having a panic attack. That was like 2 months straight of that, and it was kind of like, oh my god, what is wrong with me? And at the time, I didn't really chalk it down to imposter syndrome because I'm an incredibly anxious person too. So I was like, oh, maybe my anxiety is just really flaring up for whatever reason. On reflection, I can go, like, I just didn't feel like I should be there. And then it's kind of just continued on. It got a lot better, but it still comes in and out up until like even the most recent project I did for literally no reason. My brains go, you're terrible. Or like people might go to grab a coffee and immediately my brain's going, oh, they're talking about you, and being like, oh, you just have to be a bit slow for Tadhg, we gotta let him catch up. So yeah, that's what it does for me. It's fun, if any of that made sense.
Wow, that's a lot.
Not to make this a pity party.
No. Like, this is your experience. And wow, to like have 2 months where like nearly every morning class you're like having a panic attack.
Pretty
And
insane. And to me,
wow.
that was just normal at the time, which was even stranger. Like, at no point did I really stop to question that. Even though it's very obviously like, that's not okay. I knew it wasn't okay, but I wasn't going, oh, this is a real problem. Like, it just became, oh yeah, I'll go in, I'll do my bar, I'll go cry, and then we'll go rehearse. Like, it just became routine. It was really strange.
That's just extremely intense, though. Thank you for sharing that. I think an extreme version of imposter
For sure.
syndrome. So for you to be able to like talk about it so openly, which you may not feel this way, is such a credit to you. I'm sure there are other people like that. You got through your training, you were in ballet youth for 4 years, and you know you've been on amazing productions. You obviously are and I've seen you. You are an incredible dancer. So for someone like yourself who has achieved so much and is so obviously an extremely talented person, it is going really well.
I think that's the thing about it, is like there's no rhyme or reason or logic to it. There's never going to, like, your brain is just working against you for some reason. Like, objectively, I can, look at my CV and go, damn, like, I've done some pretty cool stuff. And I have moments where I reflect on kind of the past couple of years since college and I go, like, I've achieved so much. I've done so much I dreamed of since I was like 10, 11 years old. Yet I still then immediately go back to, oh, it was just luck. It was just chance. Instead of going, no, maybe I am actually good at my job. Like, maybe there's just a small chance. And like, even so far as like coming on this podcast, part of me is going, oh, like, what do I have worth to say? Like, like what have I done that's worthwhile talking about? Like, there's no logic to it at all. But it is what it is.
I think that's a big part of artists, and there's things that we do that make no sense. There's no logic behind them. We do it and we think it's normal, but it's actually not. I know I'm not the only one who did this, but people would hide their injuries for fear of getting pulled from pieces.
Yep.
And I would have been the first person to say to someone, not out of, oh my God, I want your spot, but out of, no, if you keep dancing on that, you are going to really hurt yourself. It's better to take the 2 days off than 2 months off. I had an experience where I had a niggle and loads of people were telling me, go get that checked out. Like, you're always telling us, get it checked out, and here you are. And it was one of those weird things. I got to the point where I was kind of limping, but when I was in a class, it was like you were so busy trying to remember everything and do it that you did it all right. But then you go to walk home from the bus and you're like, oh my God, like everything hurts right now. I feel like I've aged about 40 years. I went to the physio. She was always good at giving you exercises, and you could still dance while recovery from an injury. And she just looked at me and said, can you stop for a few days? And I was like, yeah, like it was the week before, I think, our Easter break. And I was like, I have a week to go and then I have 2 weeks off. Like, yeah, I could stop, but do I need to? And she was pushing like on my foot and she was like, see the way that's like squishy? It's not supposed to be.
It's always something that's not supposed to be squishy. That's always.
And she was like, you're flirting with a stress fracture. And I remember being shocked because I'd had injuries in the past, but this was my most serious. And it was the first time where you go, I was willing to keep dancing on this and I would have been in a much worse situation. It's coming back to that thing of it's not normal, but we think it is.
Just on that, you said a while back of, oh, if I take this few days off, I'll be cut from the piece or something. I think it's very important to note that happened. It's very easy to make that up in your head, but it's also all too common. Like when I sprained my ankle in college, like I came back far sooner than I should have, which set me back further because it felt like there was this pressure to get back. And if you're not doing it, well, why are you here? I even remember, I think it was after a Christmas assessment, I did everything bar like a Grand Allegro. And I shouldn't have even been jumping at all. And like at the end, I was just gathering up my stuff, and one of the teachers turned around to me and he was like, "When was the last time you were at physio?" And I was like, "Oh, like 2 weeks ago." He was like, "Well, it's been a while now, hasn't it?" Got really kind of basically just implying I was faking it. And I was like, "Sorry, what? I want to be able to dance. Like, why would I fake this?" But I think it's just important to note that it does happen. People do get cut and stuff. You know, there is I won't say every good reason, every bad reason to keep dancing on something and to push yourself, because unfortunately there is that, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it happens, and it still happens a lot more than you probably think.
And I think the fact that, especially when still in training and in kind of an educational setting, teachers were always like, tell us before class if you have something. But there would be that thing of, even in that setting, not that you would necessarily be cut from pieces, but you might be put at the back, or you were taken out of that section and put in a shorter section.
Yeah.
Things like that do happen even in an educational field as well as a professional field. And I think because my injury happened in an educational field, it's wild when you think back on it and you're like, I was still training, I was still learning, but I already knew to hide my injuries. And I knew there were other people doing the exact same thing, because once you leave the studio, you're all just sitting around having lunch and talking, and you just exchange your injuries, and it's normal for people to have ice packs.
I even remember reading one interview recently from a dance physio, and she was kind of going like, I know when a dancer comes to me about something, that it is way worse than what they're telling me, and if an average person was to come to me, because not only one, do they for the most part have, higher pain tolerance, but two, they've been hiding this for so long, and they've probably been like hiding it from themselves to an extent that by the time they come to me and they're going, oh, I just have this wee niggle, they're in serious bother.
Definitely. I even know that was with me with the stress fracture. You're like I was getting to the point where I would leave class and you're struggling to walk, and you're like, wow, I need to go, but I should have gone much sooner.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's wild. And I think it's not until you almost like this, you almost think back and you reflect on it, and definitely talking to other people coming out the other side, where you sit back and you go, hold on a sec now, should we really be all doing this?
Yeah, but I also know, I promise you, we're sitting here talking about this now. We're all going to go do it again. Like,
Oh yeah.
we're sitting here talking, going, yeah, this is terrible, let's not do that. Next job we're on, we're going to be doing exactly that. Like, it's so ingrained in us now.
I don't know what can be done to fix it or change it. I feel like it's so ingrained in the industry.
It's come up a lot recently in terms of masking, ingrained in us to just mask in the arts. I know people are talking about it more. I think it is getting better because you are usually freelance. You do not know when your next job is. So therefore, like, saying no to jobs that's a big privilege and not very usual. When you took your break and getting back into it, how did you find that? Did you have a support system? I would presume you found it beneficial.
It's been really difficult, I won't lie. I thought I was going to be a lot better than I was coming back, and I was really happy to get back, don't get me wrong, but it's been difficult, and I think part of me wonders, is it something that I need to be in the studio to fully kind of get over and work through, but also is it worth it if it makes me that miserable. This has gone really sad. I'm really lucky that I have had a really good support system getting back. I've been working with people I've known for a very long time, and I've been very open with them about what's been going on. So I think that's helped. It's not like I'm just going into a room where it's people who don't know me or have never worked with me. It's kind of like they're very aware that I haven't been dancing, why I haven't been dancing, like what I'm getting back to. So extremely supportive, but still very difficult. I'm kind of in the process now of going, okay, what do I need to do now? I've taken this break. I've come back. It's maybe not done the job exactly the way I thought it would. Where do I go from here?
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And thank you again for being so honest, because I think it's honestly so helpful for whoever hears it. If you had some advice, if someone's experiencing imposter syndrome.
It's a difficult one. One, talk about it. You're talking there about masking and pushing through. It's very easy to do that. We touched on it earlier about people being overconfident and stuff. I think that's the other end of what happens. So I think it's important to talk about it and be very open and honest about it and kind of going, yeah, this is how I feel. Trust in your peers and colleagues. I think it's also a very Irish thing. We don't like compliments. We don't like being told we're doing well or all that. So that doesn't help as it is. But I think trust when somebody tells you that, especially within your industry. Like, it's one thing just having your regular friends or family. But if you're working with somebody and they're going, no, I want you to be here, or, you're doing a good job, trust that they mean it. Because most of the time, if you're not doing a good job, they'll tell you. Yeah, I think it's just talking about it and trusting the people in the room, whatever room that may be, who are working with you, and trust that they want you there, because ultimately you wouldn't be there if they didn't want you in the first place. But also, trusting people is difficult, as we all know. But that's probably the best I can say. Just listen, trust in yourself as well. Trust in the good things your brain has to say, which is almost the hardest part. But, when you do sit down, look at your achievements and go, yeah, I fucking did that. And I deserved those things. It wasn't chance or luck or anything else. Like, you deserve to be where you've be and you've put in the work. So you may as well enjoy it to the best extent you can anyway.
Is there anything you have experienced, like programs that has helped you deal with imposter syndrome, or do they exist?
Not that I'm aware of. There probably is. I know there's a couple podcasts and stuff that, much like this, very open conversations with people. So in terms of actual help, not really. I think that's a problem within the arts, even more so within dance, is finding the right people to talk to. And that's one thing I've found. Like, sometimes you feel like you just need to talk to somebody who gets it. Because, like, everybody can get it, but, like, you really want somebody who's kind of been through it to go, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, you don't want to have to sit and explain everything, which I know it's hard to do. But I think it's sometimes you just want to be able to sit down and vent without having to go, oh, but this is why I feel like this or this. Like, you just want somebody to go, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's go further.
I think that's an artsy thing. When you meet normal people with normal jobs, like I even remember saying, like, oh yeah, I want to be a dancer. Having to explain to people even the process of, yes, I will go to a college. It's just not Trinity or UCD. It's just a different college. It's a different course. Yeah, I needed my leaving cert, but I needed my body to do weird things.
Yeah.
More so than writing an 8-page essay on King Lear. I think that's what's been nice even about the podcast. We've been, like me and Eve, we've been meeting and talking to different people about a variety of different things, and how you get, I think, much further in the conversation because like that, you don't need to start from square -5. Even if you haven't experienced it yourself in the exact same way, there's an element of it that you can relate to.
Yeah, there's a level of understanding there.
Yeah, like even here, like Neve, you're an actor, but you can relate to and understand where Tadhg is coming from, even though he's a dancer. And I think that's a wonderful thing. We were talking to Patrick Chapman, who's a poet, so miles away from my field, but you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, okay. The thing I took away from it was like, oh yeah, okay, I don't write with pen and paper but I'm writing with my body and not pen and paper. I'm going off on a tangent now. But that mutual understanding in the arts, it's almost like a club you're kind of in or something. And you're like, okay. Yeah, you're like, I get it.
I remember what he said about procrastination as a writer. He said it's part of the process, which I was just kind of blown away by. Oh, that's a different way of thinking about it.
Procrastination can be seen as taking a break, but I think it is a thing in the arts. If you take a break, it can be seen as something negative. I wonder, is that been maybe your experience?
For sure, because it has been something I was thinking of doing for a good year before I actually did it. So I definitely been talking to people and stuff. You know, I had people going, "Oh yeah, sure, I took a break for 3 years and I came back to it fine." Like, yeah, it hurt, but like other than that, and then you have other people kind of going, "Oh, like you're young, things are going well for you. Like, why stop now?" One of my biggest fears going into it was like, what are people going to think of me? Like, everyone knows me as a dancer, and mainly people I don't like, people from college and stuff that I don't even talk to anymore. I don't want to talk to. I'm kind of going, suddenly they're gonna see me as a failure. They're gonna be like, it didn't work out for him. But then on the other end, I've had people going, like, as long as you're happy, take the break. Like, what's to say you can't get back to it? If you never get back to it, that's okay too. Ultimately, you've got to put yourself first. I still think it was the best decision at the time, and I still think it's the best decision at the moment as I'm getting back into it. So I think once I've got over that, wait, I don't actually care what anybody thinks. I'm gonna go have this break, live my life, have some fun. Who gives a fuck? And it's been great, and I've loved it.
It's so good to hear, and thank you so much for sharing all this with us, because I'm sure there are days where it's like, how am I going to get through this? And the fact that you've decided to sit here and chat to, in a way, to strangers and be so open, it's an absolute pleasure. Like what Neve said earlier, it's an absolute credit to you.
No, I mean, thank you for having me. It's great to have a platform. I love a good yap. I love talking shit.
If there was a young person listening to this and they were really like yourself, they're interested in dance, how do they go about it? What?
Like, I think the best place to start is always places like the youth ballet. I know so many people who have gone on to have careers from that, because you're in an environment where maybe, unlike your local dance, like everyone's kind of doing the same thing, taking it seriously once, has that kind of pathway. Even if they don't end up doing it, it's an option for everybody there. Like, everyone has a similar mindset. And then, you know, you've got people in those environments who were professional dancers or are professional dancers who can kind of start helping you get on the right path. You know, go to summer school if you can afford to do so. I get it's expensive. It's probably more expensive than when I was doing it. I call it networking, but at 15 years old, you're not going to be networking. You're putting your face out there, you're showing up. But even the friends you meet, I'm still in contact with so many people from those like week-long course stuff who have also gone on to have careers and stuff, and we're helping each other get jobs or whatever. So it's like just meeting everyone you can, do your research, and just audition everywhere you possibly can. I think that's my biggest regret, is for whatever reason being so picky. Do as many. Again, I get it's expensive. There's audition fees, which is bullshit. But just do all the auditions you can. They're always worth doing, even if you don't want to go there or you don't get the place. Enjoy it. I suppose I have to say that.
The final question is there anything that you think the government could do to help artists, or maybe in this case, maybe help with artists' mental health, or any programs that were available in the past but are maybe no longer available? Should they be brought back, or anything like that? Any thoughts about that?
I mean, the government can always do more in everything. We're all well aware of the state of politics in our country. I think there's definitely steps in the right direction to bring the arts to where it needs to be, but it always feels like they're just steps and there's never really an end to that journey, or they don't know exactly where they're going with those steps. That's kind of been my thoughts on it since getting into it all professionally, and just seeing everything that happens and is happening. It always feels like they take the steps and they go, yeah, great, but they don't really know why they're taking the steps or what they're going to do with the steps. Take the whole basic income for the arts. Like, everyone went, yeah, amazing, including myself, and now I've kind of gone, oh, but what are they doing about that? Like, they don't really talk about it all that much. Like, did they have a plan in the first place? I know money's tight, but the money's there. I think they could just use it a bit more wisely and actually talk to us. I think that's the biggest one. Talk to us, give us the opportunity to talk to as many people as possible. I know there's been things that have happened recently, and there wasn't necessarily the communication there that was needed with much of the dance community. They kind of went, we'll talk to you. Done. And it's like, no, that's, there's a lot of us out there. There's a lot of, dance is a very umbrella term. I think communication is the big one, and that's in any art form, is just talk to us, because most politicians aren't artists and don't know what the fuck they're doing as it is. I'll leave it at that. Just
This could be a whole different other podcast episode, but there is a new role called like a well-being coordinator. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's very popular in the UK. Well, it's beginning to be, but they're starting to get it in here again. It costs money, but it's literally having someone on production who is designated for any kind of well-being concern. So like something to do with mental health, or even something to do with bullying or harassment. It's still very, very new. In the UK, it's called a well-being facilitator, but hopefully it could come here.
fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, again, it costs money, so maybe the government could give us.
Thank you so much, Tadhg, for coming on today's show. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you and getting to know you and your story. And thank you so much for being so honest and open and talking about you and your struggles, because it's not easy to go through something like that.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was lovely to talk to you both. It's been really nice.